Hello students, topic of today's lecture is biasing circuits for BJT amplifier. So in this presentation we will talk first about the basic concepts of amplifier, about load line and operating point. Then we will discuss various biasing methods and then equivalent circuit. You know, it's very important to study equivalent circuit because they help us to find out many performance parameters like input resistance, output resistance and voltage gain. And finally we will summarize the discussions. So first, about the basic concepts of amplifiers. You know that in case of amplifier circuit, the main goal is to achieve amplification without much distortions in the output signal. You see here, in this case, this input signal is applied and we got output. So it's like 180 degree phase shift is introduced by this amplifier, but otherwise you see that there is no change in the shape of the signal. While if you see this kind of amplifier arrangement, so you see on the negative half cycle there is on the negative half cycle there is a distortion. So there is a cut in the signal, and in the same way, if here in this figure you see there is a distortion at the output side. So we don't want these kind of distortions to be present in our amplifier circuit. We want a faithful amplification, means the shape of the signal should not change. Only the strength of the signal is increased after amplification. You know that in case of BJT based amplifiers, most of the time we prefer common emitter configuration. You can see here in this circuit, this configuration is a common emitter configuration. So the input is applied between base and emitter, and output is taken at the collector and emitter side. So if any variation occurs in the base current, these variations produces variations in the collector current. And you know that the output characteristics of a BJT in common emitter configurations are something like this. So here on the x-axis there is output voltage, collector emitter voltage, this voltage, and on the y-axis there is collector current. So these output relationship or the output characteristics shows the relationship of IC and VCE for different base currents. But you know, when a AC signal is applied on the input side, so corresponding to the variations in the base current, there are variations in the output current, and so there are variations in the collector voltage also. Collector voltage is the output voltage here, and the output voltage and output currents, they are related to each other with the help of this equation. This equation we can get with the help of Kirchhoff's voltage law. You can see here, this RC is circuit parameter and this VCC is also a circuit parameter, means they are fixed in the circuit, and this IC and VCE, they are the variable parameters, they are output voltage and output current, and they follow this equation of a straight line. It means if there are variations on the input signal, so because of that any variation in the output voltage and output current will be in the form of a straight line, and that straight line actually is known as load line. So you can read here, so according to input signal variation and at output characteristics, this variation is along a straight line, and this straight line is something like this. This is load line. So the output voltage VCE and IC, they vary along this line always, and you can see that if IB increases here in the circuit, IC increases. So you see, if IB increases, this is a higher IB curve and this is lower IB curve. So if IB increases, means if you go to this curve, then IC increases of course, and this variation is along the straight line. And you see, if IC is increasing, this output voltage VCE is decreasing. Similarly, if IB is decreasing, we go to the lower IB curve, but we have to travel along this straight line only. Then this IC, you see, we are going here, this IC is decreasing, but you see this VCE is increasing. Now if we want to find out how much is the maximum current here and how much is the maximum voltage along this load line, then we can find out with the help of this equation of straight line. So this highest current is in the case when the output voltage is 0, because we are here on the y-axis. So this output voltage, if you put 0, we can find out the condition for the highest current, and it is given like this. So if you put VCE 0 here, then IC will be VCC by RC. So that is the highest current here. So if you want to find out this highest voltage, then for that purpose what we have to put? We have to put IC equal to 0, because here on this line IC is 0. So if you put IC 0 here, then this factor will be 0, then VCE, that's this output collector emitter voltage, will be equal to VCC, and it is indicated here as VCC. You can see here this is VCC, and here this is VCC by RC. So now we talk about the operating point. What is operating point? So if no AC signal is applied on the input side, at that time the circuit have a fixed value of input current, circuit have fixed value of output current, and so there is a fixed value of output voltage. So the value of output current and output voltage in zero signal conditions are known as Q point, or you can say the operating point. So the DC voltage and DC current which flows in the device during zero signal conditions. Zero signal means the AC signal, there is no AC signal, so no AC signal is applied, right? So when no AC signal is applied, so at that time the output voltage and output current are known as Q point. And our goal is always to set this Q point in such a way that during the entire range of input and output signal, device remains in the active region. It should not go into the saturation region or in the cutoff region. So for example, here you can see in this graph, so this portion here, this dark portion is cut off. So we don't want our device to operate here in this region, and this dark portion is saturation, so the device should not enter in this region also. So the operating point definitely will be in this load line, anywhere on the load line, but we have to choose in such a way that during the entire range of signal strength, the device always remains in the active region. So there are three different scenarios. So operating point may be here, and maybe here. So just for example, these three different scenarios are taken, and you can see that the wrong choice of operating point can create a lot of distortion in the signal. And if there is a proper or you can say good choice of operating point is made, then we get undistorted output. For example, here you see the operating point is exactly in the center, and the input signal which is applied here, which is superimposed on this DC voltage. So when this signal swing occurs here, so corresponding to that there are changes in the output current and output voltage. You see this base current, input current is changing like this. Corresponding to this change in the input base current, there is change in the output current, collector current, and there is corresponding change in the collector emitter voltage, or you can say the output voltage. You can see this output current and output voltage variation is within the active region only. So this is something which we want to achieve while designing an amplifier. But I told you the wrong choice of operating point can cause disasters. For example, you can see here in the coming slide, you see here, so operating point is very close to this saturation region. So during the positive half cycle of the input signal, you see the collector current that is clipped, and that's why at output also, output voltage also is clipped like this. So this kind of distortion occurs. Similarly, if your operating point is more close to the cutoff side, the same problem occurs. Here this distortion is occurring on the negative half cycle, right? You see here, right? Because the device is entering into the cutoff region. But don't think that if you have chosen the operating point exactly at the center, then the job is done. So you have to be careful again. So for example, if you see here, the operating point is exactly in the center, but if you apply too much AC voltage to the base, right? For example, if you apply very high base voltage, there is a large variation into the base current, and this large variation in the base current means there is very large variation in the collector current, and you see the collector current enters into saturation or cutoff, and in this case it is going one half cycle it's entering into saturation, and another half cycle it is going into the cutoff. You see the operating point was exactly in the center, but here what we did, we are applying too much high signal. So while operating a amplifier, first we have to be sure that operating point is exactly in the center. Second, the signal which we are applying, that should also be of a suitable range, so that the output current and output voltage doesn't enter into saturation and cutoff, and they remain in the active region only. Now we go to the biasing methods. So we have discussed in the earlier slides also that the DC biasing of BJT is done to ensure that device always remains in the active region. It should not go into the saturation or cutoff region, and this active region should be during the whole portion of the input signal. And the second requirement which this biasing circuit should fulfill is that the stability of operating point. Operating point should remain stable. It should not change with the change in the environmental conditions or with change in the beta of the device. So all these things we have to take care, and the most popular bias configurations which are used for the BJT circuits are these three: self bias method, emitter bias method, and potential bias method. So first we discuss this fixed bias circuit. In this fixed bias circuit, the circuit arrangements are like this. You see, instead of two power supplies, we have only one power supply. The base part is also getting power from the VCC, but you know the base current is very small as compared to the collector current. So in order to maintain the small current here, the value of RB is sufficiently high. Now so this is the circuit which we can use for the AC also, but here this circuit is the DC equivalent circuit, and this configuration is the simplest configuration, simplest bias configuration for transistors. And the problem with this bias configuration is that it is extremely beta dependent and it is very unstable. Beta dependent means if beta of the device changes, then there will be a significant change in the output current and output voltage, or you can say that there is a significant change in the operating point. We don't want operating point to change like this, because that way the operating point can go near saturation or near cutoff. So we want operating point to be stable. So we want that the operation or the output current and output voltage, they are beta independent. Now let's see its mathematical analysis. So what happens? So if we see the input side of this circuit, input side, so it's VCC, RB, and this base emitter junction is coming here, and then this emitter is connected to ground. So if we see this base emitter loop and we apply Kirchhoff's voltage law here, this equation will be like something like this: VCC minus voltage drop here minus this VBE, and net voltage is 0 here. So from this equation we can find out IB. IB, the base current, is VCC minus this VBE divided by RB. And if we apply this Kirchhoff's current voltage law at the output side of this circuit, then here this law will give you VCC minus IC into RC, voltage drop here, minus voltage which is appearing at the output or the common emitter voltage of this transistor, and net voltage is 0. So from this equation you can find out IC, and this IC is VCC minus VCE divided by RC. But what we are more interested in to find out the relationship between the input current and output current, and how the beta affects the stability. So for that purpose, you know that the IC is equal to beta into IB. So now we are interested to find out the dependence of IC on IB or on beta. So for that purpose, put the value of IB from here in this equation and you get this. So you can see the IC is directly proportional to beta. So if beta changes, IC will change, right? So this arrangement is sensitive to beta, and this is something which we don't want. I told you earlier that if you change the device because of some reason, then it is not always sure that the beta of transistor remains same. So even if it is of same make and same serial number, there are chances that there is some variation in the beta, and those variations may be very disastrous because those variations can cause the operating point to shift from the desired value. Now this is the second biasing arrangement. So here a emitter resistance is introduced here, and this emitter resistance actually provides a type of negative feedback into the circuit. And this resistor Re, it helps to improve the stability, right? So this circuit is more stable as compared to this fixed bias or self bias arrangement which we discussed in the earlier slide. And what is the meaning of stability? Stability means the bias circuit sorry, should produce a current and voltage at the output which remains always constant for a wide range of temperatures and beta values. So even if the transistor is changed and its beta changes, even if environmental conditions changes like temperature changes, the IC at the output should not change so much. So we cannot avoid change because of change of beta and because of change of temperature, but what we want that the change in beta, change in the output current should be as minimum as possible, so that any shifting in the operating point is also minimized. Now this Re provides negative feedback which doesn't allow IC to increase much even if beta increases. And how it happens, you can see through this loop. Suppose beta increases, so you can consider both kind of cases, if beta increases or beta decreases, but as an example I have taken here as a case when beta increases. So you have changed this transistor because earlier transistor is damaged, suppose, and if you are changing this transistor, there are chances that the beta changes, and suppose the beta increases. So what happens if beta increases? This base current is fixed here, so this IC will increase, and because of this voltage drop Re, voltage drop here, this voltage drop across this will increase. So I don't know why this line is coming, right? And because of this, this voltage here, this voltage VBE is fixed, that is 0.7, right? So if this voltage is increasing, this VB will increase, and if this VB is increasing, the voltage across this voltage will reduce. Why? Because this VCG is fixed, VB is increasing, so the voltage across this will decrease, and because this voltage is decreasing, base current will decrease. You see here base current is decreasing, and if base current is decreasing, you know collector current is dependent on the base current. If base current decreases, collector current will decrease. So what is happening? So all this process offset the increase in beta. So what was we expecting? We expecting that if beta is increasing, this collector current should increase, but this loop you see is designed in such a way that the IC is decreasing, right? So that way we are able to make this circuit less we are able to make this circuit in such a way that the IC is now less sensitive to the beta, right? And in earlier case you have seen that the IC was directly proportional to beta. If beta is increasing, IC was increasing. So all these discussion was a qualitative discussion that how this resistance, how the addition of this resistance is helping us to reduce the increase in the IC. So mathematically also we have to see it. So now we will go for its mathematical analysis. So first see this input side. So this base emitter loop. So if we apply Kirchhoff's voltage law here, this VCC minus this voltage drop across this part minus this VBE, right? And then the voltage drop across this is IE into RE, and net voltage is 0. And you know this IE is actually beta plus 1 IB, right? Because this IE is IC plus IB, right? And IC is beta into IB. So it is beta IB plus IB. So the IE is given by this. So if you put the value of IE here, then we get this equation something like this, and from here we can find out IB base current, and the base current is given by this equation. Now if we apply this Kirchhoff's voltage law on the output side, so what will happen? You see, VCC minus voltage drop across this IC into RC minus collector emitter voltage which is appearing across this minus IE into RE here, and here this IE is equal to IC, so we can replace this IE by IC. So from this equation now we can find out the IC, and IC will be given something like this. But again, what we are interested in is that how the output voltage is related to input, how the output current is related to input current, or you can say on beta, with beta. So you know that IC is equal to beta into IB. So IC will be IB is coming from this equation, so you can put here, and now you see this IC again it is proportional to beta, but in this equation there is a difference. Here this numerator is dependent on beta, of course, but this but this denominator is also beta dependent. So if the beta is increasing numerator, beta is increasing partially this denominator also, and if both numerator and denominator are increasing, then the increase is not so much, while in case of a self bias arrangement, only here in the numerator there was beta and the beta was increasing. So whatever increase was there in the beta, the exactly same increase was there in the IC, but here the beta is increasing, so this part is also increasing, so net increase is not that much which was there in case of self bias arrangement. So you can say that this arrangement is less sensitive to the beta. So this was the mathematical proof that here IC is less dependent on beta, because beta appears in both numerator and denominator. And in the earlier slide we saw the qualitative analysis, so where we saw that how the introduction of this RE produces a negative feedback which help us to reduce the sensitivity of IC on beta. Now let us see how the introduction of this RE here in this circuit affects the load line. So you know that load line is very important. The variation of output current at voltage is along this straight line on the output characteristics, which is load line. So let us see how it affects. So the load line is something like this. So in earlier case, in the case of fixed bias, I mean, this maximum current was VCC by RC, but here you see, if you apply this Kirchhoff's voltage law here on the output side, this VCE is given something like this. So if you want to find out the maximum output current which occurs when the output voltage is 0, so you put here 0, so you find out IC, and IC is VCC divided by this. So this is the change which occurs because of use of this RE here in this circuit. So if you see here this maximum output voltage, so that is still VCC, because maximum output voltage means your IC is 0. If you put IC 0 here, VCE is equal to VCC. So you see, if you don't connect this RE here, the maximum collector current was much higher, but if you are adding RE here, this point is coming little down depending on the value of RE, but doesn't matter. What we are getting here, the stability of operating point, and that is more important thing. Now this is the third biasing method, voltage divider bias. So here what happens, so this is the most widely used type of bias circuit. If you see amplifier circuit, most of the time you will find this kind of biasing arrangement, and this voltage divider bias is more stable, and so it is beta independent as compared to other biasing methods which we discussed little before. So how it improves the stability? So what happens? So in this circuit, VB is maintained constant. So you know, in case of earlier method, like even with the emitter bias method, emitter resistance method, so the VB was increasing if IC was increasing, right? But here this VB is kept constant. So the feedback resistance Re changes, this Re is changing VBE, right, this VBE. So this voltage is changed when the output current changes, while the VB remains constant. And that's why the control on the current is more strong here, because okay, so you see here, so the loop takes place like this. Suppose beta increases, so you can take another example also when beta decreases, but here I am taking this example that beta increases. So when beta increases, this current IC will increase, so this VRE will increase, of course. So this voltage here is increasing, but since VB is constant, so VBE will decrease, because this voltage at this end is increasing. So here voltage is increasing and this is fixed. So what will happen if this increases and this remains fixed? This voltage difference will decrease, this voltage difference will decrease, right? So here we will see this kind of decrease in the voltage. And if this base emitter voltage decreases, so the IB decreases, and if IB decreases, IC decreases. So what I was telling, that this control over this VBE is more meaningful, because this is a diode, and in case of diode the current is exponentially dependent on the voltage. So if there is small change in the voltage, there is a big change in the current here. So small variation in this voltage here is sufficient enough to make a big reduction into the base current, and so a big reduction in the collector current. So that's why this kind of situation where instead of changing VB, you are changing base emitter voltage, that is more meaningful or more effective in reduction of collector current, even when this beta is increasing. So that's why this arrangement offers more stability. But now we have to see that how to maintain this constant, this VB constant. So we have to make this design in such a way that the VB remains constant. So let's see, so how we make it independent, VB is independent of any change in the current in IP. You see, what we want, that the voltage which is appearing here, that voltage should remain constant, right? And this arrangement here, that will decide how much VB we are getting, because VB will be given by this R2 by R1 plus R2 potential divider arrangement. But this VB may change, because you see this R2 is in parallel with the resistance which is coming here because of this arrangement here, this base emitter voltage and this emitter resistance. So this resistance is coming in parallel with this R2. So the net resistance is the parallel combination of these two, and the effect of this resistance cannot be neglected. So the presence of this resistance will try to reduce the net resistance here, and so this V2 may change. So if you want to make this this VB constant, what we need to look here in more detail. So we have to first find out the approximate value of resistance which is appearing between this VB terminal and ground and through this side of base emitter and RE. So suppose the net resistance Ri is which is the equivalent resistance between base and ground for transistor with an emitter resistance. So Ri is the equivalent resistance which is coming here because of this part, right? So if we want to make this V constant, so we have to make we have to choose this R2 in such a way that this the major part of the current which is coming I1 from which is I1. So the major part of this I1 flows through this, and a small current goes towards this side. So that way, even if there is a change here, so that change will not create a major change in this current, and the current which is flowing here in I2, that will also remains almost constant. So if this current is almost constant, the voltage here will also remain constant. So that way, what we need, we want this R2 to be designed in such a way that this R2 is very small as compared to Ri, and that way we can ensure that the I1 is almost equal to I2. So what happens here in this side, that that is not going to affect the voltage present here. And this Ri, which is present between this base terminal and ground, so that Ri is something like this, beta plus 1 into Re, and this Ri that way is approximately equal to beta into Re, because this beta is very large as compared to 1. So if we want to ensure this condition that this Ri should be very large as compared to R2, or you can say the R2 is very small as compared to Ri, so what we have to satisfy that this R2 is very small as compared to beta into Re divided by 10, right? So R2 should be equal to this or less than this. So that way this R2 will consume most of the current, and the current which is going toward this side is very small, and that way this V2 is almost constant. So if we are able to make VB constant by choosing a suitable value of R2, only then we are able to get all the benefits of this potential divider arrangement. So the beta times the value of R is at least 10 times the larger the value of the IB. In that case, IB becomes negligible and VB remains constant. So you can see all the three biasing arrangements are compared here. Now this first one, so IC is given by this formula, and it's beta times this factor. So if there is any change in the beta, so IC changes by the same amount. If beta changes, IC changes. If beta changes by 10%, IC changes by 10%. Beta changes 50%, IC changes by 50%. So you can say it is highly sensitive to the beta. And if we talk about the second arrangement, self bias with emitter resistance, so here we already have covered this part. So how this loop take place? So actually the VB increases. So this VB increases, and if VB increases, voltage here, this voltage reduces, and reduction is this voltage is used to reduce the IB and then to reduce the IC. So here RE, the introduction of RE changes VB, right? And the relationship also we have seen in the earlier slides. So this beta appears both in numerator and in denominator, but it is less sensitive as compared to this earlier arrangement, right? And if we talk about this potential divider arrangement, so here this RE changes VBE. So this VBE, this voltage. So here this RE was changing VB, but here this RE is not changing VB. VB is constant by choosing the suitable value of R2, and now this RE is changing the VBE, and that's why this arrangement is more effective. You can see this VRE is increasing, so VBE is decreasing. So that kind of change, that is the difference in these two circuits. Here VB is increasing, but here this VBE is decreasing, and because of that IB is decreasing and this collector current is decreasing. So that way you can see that this arrangement is almost independent of beta. We are not going into the detailed calculations because that takes time, but I have explained qualitatively how this arrangement helps you to achieve the more stability. Now normally in the amplifier circuits we connect here a bypass capacitors. So now we have to see what is the importance of this capacitor. So we have seen that this RE introduces negative feedback, which helps us to improve the stability of the operating point. But if we apply AC signal here, the AC current will pass through this, and that AC current will also pass through this RE. So this negative feedback will be applied to the AC signal also, and you know that the AC signal, the feedback to the AC signal can reduce the AC voltage gain, right? That we don't want. Negative feedback always reduces the voltage gain, and that reduction in the voltage gain we don't want. So that's why this RE is bypassed with this, so that the AC current passes through this capacitor and DC current passes through this. So for DC we get feedback, but for AC we don't get any feedback. So if there is no feedback, we can get sufficient amount of voltage gain. And for that purpose, what we have to do, we have to choose this capacitor in such a way that the impedance offered by this capacitor is much less than RE, so that the AC signal can easily pass through this. And how small that should be the impedance? According to one estimate, the impedance of this capacitor should be about 1/10 of this RE. If this RE is 500 ohm, this impedance of this should be about 50, so that the AC signal can easily pass through this part. But you know that the impedance depends on the frequency. So which frequency should be used to calculate this? So you know this kind of bandwidth diagram for amplifier. So we have to see that what lower cutoff frequency we want in our amplifier circuit, and whatever calculation we do for finding out the value of CE. So for those calculations we should use this lower frequency from this spectrum, because if we are sure that at this lowest frequency in this spectrum the impedance is 1/10 of this impedance, so definitely at higher frequency its impedance is going to reduce further. So definitely it will be much smaller than RE, so AC signal will easily pass through this part, right? So when we use this arrangement for the AC signal amplification, so most of the time we apply this bypass capacitor to avoid the negative feedback to the AC signal, otherwise we can get reduction in the voltage gain. But suppose we want low gain and we want to have other benefits of the negative feedback. In that case we can remove this capacitor, there is no problem, right? But in most of the situation we use this capacitor, and if we are using this capacitor, remember we are not applying negative feedback to AC signal, we are applying negative feedback only to the DC current or DC voltage. Now the next point is equivalent circuit, and it's very important part because the performance parameters are calculated with the help of equivalent circuit. And you see the equivalent circuit is something like this. You see here, so I have not connected any bypass capacitor here. So in this case you see the emitter terminal is connected to the top end of this RE. You see this is the equivalent circuit of BJT transistor, this BJT transistor, right? And this emitter is here, and this emitter is going to this RE, and then this RE, other end of this RE is connected to this side, and this RB is parallel combination of these resistances, and the RC it's in case of AC equivalent, this is connected to ground, so the RC will come here like this. But if we apply this bypass capacitor here, and you see this equivalent circuit is for AC signal only, and this is AC equivalent circuit, and if this bypass capacitor is connected here, so AC doesn't see, AC signal will not see this RE, AC signal will be connected to ground through this capacitor. So in that case this equivalent circuit is something like this. You see this is the equivalent circuit of this BJT, and this R1 and R2 they are coming here in the parallel, because for AC analysis this part is grounded. So this R1 and R2 they will come in parallel, and this RC will come in parallel to this side, and you see this emitter is actually grounded, so the emitter is grounded here. So this equivalent circuit is simplified if we are considering the use of this coupling capacitor, right? So we need not to consider this, because most of the time we are going to use this coupling capacitor, and if coupling capacitor is used we have to work with this equivalent circuit. So now we understand the equivalent circuit of this potential divider arrangement of BJT circuit. We can use this equivalent circuit to find out performance parameters. For example, if you want to find out input resistance, so you see how much is input resistance, we have to look at this input side. So this R1, R2 and this beta RE, which is the input resistance of this BJT device. right? All these are in parallel. So this first it's calculated, R prime is calculated, which is parallel combination of this, and then we can find out the net equivalent input resistance, which is parallel combination of these two and this, right? So, or in simply you can say that the parallel combination of these three resistances will give you input resistance. So that's why when you design this circuit, never make this R1 and R2 very small, because here we use R1 and R2 to get a suitable value of VB, and we can get that value of VB by choosing low values of R1 and R2 also, because that only the ratio decides VB. But we never choose very small values of R1 and R2, because if we choose small values of R1 and R2, they are coming in parallel, and they are coming in parallel with this also. So this entire parallel combination will give you very low value of input resistance, right? So that's why R1 and R2 are never chosen very low. So now if we discuss about the output resistance, so you see here on the output side, so how much resistance is there? It's the parallel combination of this R0 and RC. R0, you know, is the output resistance of the BJT device, which is between collector and emitter. So it's parallel combination of RC and R0. But normally this R0 is very high as compared to RC. RC is a few kilo ohm, or sometimes less than 1 kilo ohm. But this R0 is very high. So approximately this R0 is 10 times RC. So in that case, only RC will dominate in this parallel combination, and so that's why most of the time the output impedance of this circuit or amplifier circuit is given by RC only. Now let's see the formula for the voltage gain. So for voltage gain, first we need to find out the output voltage. So you know the current here, that is beta into IB. This is constant current which depends on the input side current. So beta into IB, and that current passes through this net output resistance. So the output voltage is given by this. So this is the output current, and this is the net output resistance, which is parallel combination of these two, and it's minus, of course, because this current is going like this. So this lower side is at higher potential as compared to top side, because the current is moving from bottom to top like this. The current is going like this, right? So that's why there is a negative sign here. Now if you want to find out, okay, so this IB, you know, is given by this VI divided by this. VI is input voltage, and this beta into RE is the input resistance of this part, and this is the resistance which is going to dominate here in this whole parallel combination, because these values R1 and R2 are normally chosen very high, right? So the IB is the input voltage divided by the input resistance of diode, this diode, right? This is beta RE, and the RE is 26 millivolt divided by IE, right? From the basic equations of diode, you can easily see it. Now if you put these values here, IB here, and you put the RE here also, and then if you find out V0 by VI, you get this equation. So IB is beta VI divided by beta into RE. Beta will cancel, and this VI will come here, V0 divided by VI. So what you get? Parallel combination of RC and R0, and here you will get only RE. So this is the equation of voltage gain. And you know, we discussed earlier also, this R0 is very large. So in that case, most of the time this voltage gain is normally RC divided by RE, and this RE is given by this equation. So now it is time to summarize all the discussion. So we have seen that this is the most popular arrangement and most stable arrangement for BJT amplifier circuits, and its equivalent circuit is something like this, and with the help of this equivalent circuit we can find out the equation of voltage gain, and we can also find out the equations of input resistance and output resistance. So thank you very much. Thank you.